as you mentioned, the form of resistance have many different, the concept of resistance have many different forms. And I want to now touch upon one of the main forms of resistance and also about imperial projection, which is the concept and the issue of media. So do global social media platforms function as infrastructures of imperial dominance or influence by shaping perception and marginalizing counter narratives, or do they provide genuine space for counter hegemonic narrative?
No. This is no longer acceptable. The space for so-called counter hegemonic narratives is narrowed dramatically. You see this globally. I mean, the use of anti-terrorism legislation, for instance, to narrow discussion is global. Okay, it's happening everywhere, and I mean everywhere. Yeah, you take India. I mean, India, the laws are used, anti-terrorism laws are used entirely against students, the media, people who are different kinds of dissident. Like, a society should not feel so vulnerable that it cannot tolerate debate and discussion. Yeah, it should be able to tolerate some. Now, I understand that there is a great deal of paranoia. That since the West has mastered the art of creating disinformation and entering a country and creating cultural problems and so on and so forth, I understand that this is a real a concern, and a vital concern. Yeah, but we need to strengthen our own sense of self. We shouldn't be that worried about having a debate. We should welcome in our own countries all kinds of debates. Why? Because we should be willing to defeat the points of view that we don't agree with. We shouldn't have to silence them. We should try to debate them in even in our own societies. We must debate alternative points of view. We must allow them to be there so we can defeat them. Now, there are limits, of course. We don't want speech that is hateful against a population. If you are in India, you shouldn't permit this hate speech that is hateful against minorities, for instance. Should not be permitted, because that creates social divide unnecessarily. Yeah, we don't believe in absolute freedom of speech, but we must promote lively debate and interaction, because what the hyper imperialist powers do is, by narrowing it, just to allow a small section, and by basically calling everything else terrorism. And then if we follow that path, we basically normalize the suffocation of discussion and debate. So I'm very much one of those who says every society must have the confidence to have the debate, and knowing full well what it means, the risks this entails, knowing the risks it entails. I am happy to debate anybody of any persuasion. Yeah, I hate the format of debate, by the way. I really don't like it personally. Yeah, it makes me feel ill. I feel sick having sometimes to have these conversations. But I'm in favor of a discussion and debate, because I think we must have confidence in our own ideas, not be scared to sit there and say, I'm sorry, sir, what you just said is utterly wrong for the following reasons. Yeah. And let people make up their minds and be persuasive, and train our people to learn how to be
Yes,
persuasive and
I
not lose
completely
their
agree,
temper.
because if imperialism operates across military, financial, economic, and epistemic domains, then the resistance must also be structural. It has to be multi-layered. Let me now move to the three final questions, which is kind of linking to the global south trajectories. So in the darker nations, you revisit the Bandung moment and the non-aligned movements. Was that project a genuine structural alternative to the imperial order, or was it constrained from the outset by global capitalism, and Cold War geopolitics?
Yeah, I mean, every attempt to change the system must also be judged based on where it's coming from and when it's coming. So in 1954, 1955, when the Bandung process was being put together, it was absolutely a radical proposal on the table. What they were arguing would have advanced the concept of sovereignty and the concept of dignity. It would have advanced these concepts. It wouldn't have ended the journey, but it would have certainly taken us forward quite a considerably long way. So I'm not one who seeks perfection, at all moments. You got to see what time of history you're in and what you can advance and move. I'm a revolutionary, but I very much understand where people are. Iran is a very good case in point. 1978-79 was an Iranian revolution. Yeah, then there was a major internal struggle, a political struggle. The communists, the liberals, different forces were debating and disputing. Many of them lost the debate. Yeah, Bani Sadr lost the debate. Yeah, I mean, that's the nature of history. You have to continue the debate and have different ways of discussing and disputing issues. You can't always return to, let's say, 1979 or 1955 Bandung and say, why didn't they do this? Well, that's not the way we look at history. We understand history for what happened, and then we seek to move an agenda based on our beliefs and our attitudes and ideas, in the present, not not sort of romantically saying, why didn't they do this, you see. So I look at Bandung for what it was, and I think it was a very
Thank you.
substantial
And this
advance.
also leads us to the contemporary debate of multipolarity. And my next question is about the structural changes that we are currently witnessing with the rise of BRICS and expanding South-South cooperation. Are we witnessing the erosion of hyper-imperialism structures, or merely it's the adaptation under new geopolitical conditions? Because many experts believe that, okay, there is a new mechanism, there is a new structural system such as BRICS, but BRICS is not functioning as well as its intention was, and it's being hallowed, is being shadowed by some Western, more dominant superstructures. What's your belief on that?
Well, firstly, the BRICS is a trade body. It's not a political body. Iran is a member of the BRICS. If this was a political body, the BRICS would be out there yelling and screaming, regarding an attack on one of their members. But what have you heard from the BRICS about this war of aggression against
Not
Iran? Have
much.
you heard any statements?
Yeah.
No, because it's a trade body. It's about trade. It's not about politics. So we can't expect it to be political. It's a trade body. Iran is a member of it. Saudi Arabia is a member of it. It's a trade body. Yeah, it's not a political body. Secondly, I'm a Marxist. I do not accept US political science's geography of power relations. The concepts unipolarity and multipolarity, they come from physics. They don't have any, they don't represent a Marxist interpretation of the world. In fact, in our institute, we have a project to build a Marxist theory of geopolitics. We don't think it exists, because even what you mentioned, the neo-Gramscians are not really looking at geopolitics. The neo-Gramscians are looking at power relations globally, but they ignore economics, for instance, by and large. Yeah, they are not that, into, for instance, the role of actual economic flows, trade and financial power and so on. Yeah, you don't see dense work on that. So, in my opinion, there never was a unipolarity. United States tried to become the main dominant force, but never really succeeded, because countries like Iran, North Korea, and so on kept refusing. Yeah, Cuba kept refusing. They didn't accept it. And then the BRICS emerged and said, wait a minute, we don't accept your trading world. We're going to build our own. Okay. So there's that. And multipolarity is nobody's ideal. You can't build a multipolar world. Why? Because underneath the world today, our economic structure is entirely integrated. So multipolarity doesn't make sense. That's looking at the 21st century as if we lived in the 17th century of the Treaty of Westphalia. We don't live in the 17th century where a country can actually be by itself. They are all integrated into economic pathways. So we need to rethink the geography of power based on also the geography of economics. The geography of power cannot be thought of abstracted from the geography of economics. And sometimes people use terms like multipolarity and unipolarity as if there's no economics there. You understand? It's entirely US political science. So why are we accepting the terms of US political science? Why are you sitting at the University of Isfahan accepting the terms of US political science when US bombs are falling on your cities? It's a serious question I'm
Mm.
asking you, right?
That was interesting. But we are now facing to the first disagreement that we have until now, which is that I don't believe BRICS is a trade body. I think BRICS is more like a visionary bodies that want to shape a new global order that also reflects the economy, the culture, the politics. It reflects everything, but it's not limited to the economic terms, economic interactions. Is trying to build a new world order that is more. I know you want to disagree. That is more multipolar, more equal, more just.
No, I don't want to disagree with you. It's just that um, the reason I hesitate is that the BRICS is also made up of its own constituents. And so, for instance, India is a far right wing government which doesn't have those ambitions at all. The Indian ambition is very confusing. Russia, not sure exactly what the ambitions are. Its government is a center right government. Not sure exactly what the ambitions are towards the world order. Has Russia truly broken from its desire to be part of the Western orbit, or was Russia pushed out of it and still wants to become a G8 country? I don't know. We don't
Mm,
know. It's too soon to tell. 20 years is not enough. The fact that Iran and Saudi Arabia are in the BRICS makes me hesitate. Iran and Saudi Arabia's process that was there with the meeting in Beijing, the signing of the agreement between wasn't exactly a grand bargain. And this particular war imposed on Iran, where it's likely the United States has used Saudi bases, certainly used Saudi airspace, is going to raise issues. Saudi Arabia, also a member of BRICS, did participate in an attack on another BRICS country. And the silence of BRICS in all of this should give us a little hesitation about how we should understand the BRICS. I'm not disagreeing with you. What you're saying is your ambition for BRICS, what you want BRICS to be, what you think BRICS should be or could be. But I'm actually looking at it from the
mm,
point of view of what BRICS is now. And it's not that at
mm,
this time. It could become that. But it's not that at this time. If there was a BRICS meeting today, an emergency meeting, India, for instance, might not vote for a strong statement condemning the United States and Israel. Mr.
mm.
Modi was in Tel Aviv the day
Yeah.
before this illegal war was launched. Yeah. I mean, Iran is allowing liquefied natural gas to go to India. It is allowing it. but I mean, I think after a lot of thought, I mean, India and Iran have an extremely old relationship that goes back thousands of years. I mean, the language I grew up speaking, Hindustani, is
Yeah.
basically Farsi plus Sanskrit. You know, so much of my vocabulary is Farsi. Yeah, you know, when the emperor Humayun comes back to India from Iran, he brings Farsi into the courts, and our food is completely rooted in the cuisine of
Yeah.
Iran, much more than in the Arab world. And the important third point is I grew up in a Shia neighborhood in Calcutta. Most of
Yeah.
my neighbors, it was a Shia area. Yeah. So that was also brought back, by the way, from Iran. So the idea that India is taken such a bad position on this war is for me
Mm.
fundamentally confusing, and it actually prevents the BRICS from acting on a political ground to condemn this war, because a BRICS member is being facing a UN
Mm.
charter violation on Article 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not like I disagree with you. I think we're just sort of dancing around the BRICS. One is out of hope, the other is
I
out
see
of
where you're
disappointment.
coming. And I can also witness the disconvergence and the contrasting worldview of the global leaders within the BRICS framework, as you mentioned perfectly well. Saudi Arabia, Ben Salman is completely different to Iranian supreme leader, and Putin very different to Modi as well. So we are dealing with this convergence, I would say, but in my optimistic view, there is some hope and elements for a new transformation, a new ways of cooperation that is somehow different to the current liberal rule-based order. So this was my point. And going to the last question, last but not least, if hyper-imperialism is sustained through intertwined military, financial, and epistemic mechanisms, what would meaningful structural transformation require?
Yeah, so in my opinion, we are moving toward a new world. There is a new mood in the global south. I think the ability of China to break out of dependency is an enormous sign of good fortune for the rest of us, you know. And I think one of the most interesting features about the Tehran I remember is that there were as many Chinese cranes, giant construction cranes over the skyline of Tehran as there were Iranian cranes. I mean, the incredible amount of Chinese investment and infrastructure being built in Iran, it was for the Iranian people. Yeah, the railway lines and so on. It was incredible, that collaboration. And I hope that collaboration will pick up at the time of reconstruction. I would say for you, in the middle of an illegal war, bombardment, and so on, it's very important for you to hope for a better world. Because the first better world is the end of a war, so that your children don't have to wake up to loud noises in the middle of the night. The criminality, what this does, intergenerational, to take your word, intergenerational violence, trauma that a war does. I've seen it personally as a journalist in Iraq, in Libya, and in Palestine, and my heart goes out to the Iranian people. I mean, the violence is unbearable and unbelievable. So you must dream of a better world. It's coming. It's just coming slowly, and it's not going to come by itself. It's going to take effort by all of us, by you and me as intellectuals, to think our way seriously out of this. It's not to dream our way. We should dream, of course, but to think our way through the facts that present themselves, and how we want to move the facts in a different way. We want to move the facts in a different way. You want Iran to develop, but more than anything, You want Iran to become a country that is sovereign and not dependent on China, not dependent on Russia, not dependent on anybody. Integrated but not dependent. That should be the slogan. Integrated but not dependent. Iran must be integrated into Pakistan, integrated into India. We should revive the conversation about the peace pipeline from South Fars Field through Pakistan into India. Iran should take a role in the peace negotiations between India and Pakistan. Iran should take leadership there, bring these countries together. If the supreme leader or the president of Iran, in the middle of this war, called for a conference with Pakistan and India to discuss the peace pipeline from South Fars to India, how important that would be. India is in the middle of a liquefied natural gas crisis. Now, if the president says, listen, let's have a conference to talk about LPG coming through a pipeline through Pakistan, benefits Pakistan. It can help close the gap between Iran and Pakistan on the Baluchistan question. It can help between India and Pakistan on Kashmir. We have to be integrated but not dependent, but integrated. And the integration must not happen with the West alone. It's India, Pakistan, Iran. It's Iran, Afghanistan, Central Asia. It's Iran, Turkey, Eastern Europe. These are our integrations. It's Iran northward, Turkey into Russia. These are our integrations. This is the revival of the global South. Iran has to be at the center of it. And you have to start talking about it now, in the middle of the war. Because the way you reconstruct the country is going to be the country of the future.
Yeah. Thank you so much for this meaningful and also nuanced critical comments about the future trajectories that Iranian nation can play. It was really insightful for me. And I should also thank you for your amazing contribution toward this interview. I personally learned a lot from you.